Hello.
I'm
Hey,
locked
we're all
outside
here.
my house.
Of course you are.
You're locked outside your house?
Oh my!
Yes. Wait, why?
And there's howling dogs.
I can't even explain it.
Here we are, and welcome to another episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. This is an extra special crossover episode with the Herspiration Happy Hour. We have with us today returning special guest and dear friend of the podcast, Dr. Pam Gurley, also known as the Diva for Life. I was hoping that I'd get a laugh out of that.
I did, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to interrupt you by laughing, so I was stifling it until you were done.
So I'll start, since Pam's a returning guest, I'll start by welcoming Pam. It is so great to have you back. And what I love about this return to the episode is that we saw each other for drinks recently, and you came with a list of topics and said, when I come back on the show, here are the things we're going to talk about. And so we got it going right away, and it is a pleasure to have you back. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm chuckling over the new radio voice. It didn't have the voice the last time I was on here.
It's ridiculous, Pam. It's ridiculous.
Like,
I say that I always tell Shai I have delusions of grandeur because of the podcast, because like the other day someone was like, I was like, oh, you should really watch this show and then this other show, and they were like, but I don't have a boyfriend or husband or kids. How do you have time? Like, you're married and have a kid. How do you have time to watch TV? I literally, like, totally serious, was like, I have a podcast. Like, I have an obligation to society to watch all this stuff because I have a podcast. And then as I'm saying it, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, you think you're so important? And that's Shai with his radio voice. Shai, like, has the other version of delusions of grandeur with this podcast, where he's like, every time it has to be more and more.
It sounds like, though, it sounds like you are on a 1-800-SEX call type.
And here, in preparation for your episode, I ate a whole apple because I heard once at that voice thing.
Johnny Calabasas?
Yeah, the Johnny Calabasas voice class, where they said to eat a Granny Smith apple. They said to carry one with you, and I raised my hand and I was like, "Can we do Fuji apples? I really don't like Granny Smith." God, I thought I was a complete idiot.
hey, why? What does it do? Does it like soothe your vocal cords?
It does something. So I don't know. Maybe we'll find out that this is going to be the extra tart voice today for me. So all right, Pam, it is great to have you back. More soon as we get through your amazing list of topics. But I will also welcome Becky, calling in from California. How are you?
I'm doing great today. I'm in a good mood, feeling good. Having a lovely weekend. Nothing too crazy to report on this week. No more humiliating stories for me.
Now, our sister, Lily, are you on the phone? Are you still locked outside of your house with dogs howling at you?
I'm now in my home.
Okay.
Lily had a very dramatic entrance
into the episode.
So just to tie back to the previous episode, in the previous episode we went deep into a conversation about MoviePass, and Jessi, our official MoviePass correspondent, has been sending us updated articles on MoviePass. And I will say, while it still seems to be somewhat of a financial deal, they have introduced peak pricing during certain movies and surge pricing, like with Uber, and it seems very bait and switchy. But then she sent us this article, I think it's from the New Yorker, kind of making fun of all of the things that MoviePass could be adding, and that was just one of the funnier articles I've read lately. So I recommend that one. Has you guys changed your opinion on MoviePass lately since reading all this stuff?
I read an interesting article about like the CEO or the owner of the company, and how it was like this article. He was basically just saying how they're already making a profit, and it seemed that it was just by the numbers. He's just like, this is such a great deal for people, and if you have millions and millions and millions of people, then you're going to make money off of it, and that's what Netflix does. So we're awesome. And I just reading it, I was like, I don't know if this guy believes what he's saying. And I'm not sure that any of it made sense.
I don't know. I feel like where we left
I still would definitely buy one.
We were very skeptical of it. And no, if there's all sorts of, even if it's cheaper, if it's going to make my life more complicated, I'm not buying into it. I'm at the point now, I would rather pay a little bit more money if it's going to be, an easier option. For example, I'll pay the extra $100 to fly direct rather than having a layover. I'll pay the extra $4 for a movie ticket to know I can go to the time and place I want.
For free at Pixar, so we have no sympathy for you.
But no,
is it so complicated to walk into a theater for free? A state-of-the-art theater that exists nowhere else in the world?
Yeah, but that also comes with a caveat. There's like one movie a week at one time. It's not like we're just going to the movies whenever we want.
All right.
I'm sorry.
All right, so there you go, our movie pass update.
I will also say that you didn't ask me how I was nor introduce me, and now I gotta feel bad for you.
We told you.
But you know what? I asked you if you were still stuck outside and being chased by wolves.
That's a real introduction, and now I kind of feel bad for all the times that I ignored you when you were thinking.
How are you doing?
Such a middle child.
How are you doing?
I'm
Hey,
fine.
don't pick on the middle children.
Good, Pam. Pam's like my actual sibling, so I love Pam's solidarity. I just can't even explain it. I just love it so much. I'm good. I have two very, very funny quick things to say. One, I was talking to my husband previously, or like a few minutes ago, and he said, and I was like, oh, he goes, why isn't Shai coming and counting crows with us? And I said, because if you've been hearing this podcast for the last few weeks, I'm very excited that I'm going. And I was like, no, he's going with like a bunch of friends to fish for like the entire weekend, that weekend, so he can't. And he's like, is he? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I would have loved to go. And I'm like, what? And I was like, have we met? Are you drunk? Do I know you? What do you mean?
Well, he came with us.
And he's like, no, I would have loved to have gone. Like, I'm going to kind of cruise with you, but I it would have been so fun to go with him and his friends. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, I'm about to faint. And he's like, oh, I just went fishing with my dad last week. No. To go with your brother and the guys. I was like, oh, no. The other fish. Then I was talking to a very, very dear friend of me and Becky's, Tamar. I love you, Tamar. I was talking to her the other day. She's known Becky and I and you, Shai, for 100 million years. And I tell her, I was like, hey, Tamar, big news. My brother-in-law moved here. No joke. Her reaction was, why would Vlad move there? And I literally was like, come on. It was pretty funny.
That's great.
Like, hey, I'm not joking.
That's great.
When I say that happens.
Very fun. All right. Now, so Dr. Gurley, who is the host of the Herspiration Happy Hour, she and I were enjoying. I wouldn't say it was a happy hour because it was a little bit later in the evening, but it was. She picked a really cool speakeasy place. They made me a
Of course she did. Of
Yeah,
course she did.
it was.
Of course she did.
It was
So
super
she
cool.
did.
I go on Instagram and I like oscillate between being like, it's so awesome that I'm such like cool friends who I've never met Pam in person. It doesn't matter that I'm such good like friends with somebody that's so cool to being like, why isn't my life that cool? So it's like a love hate with your Instagram, Pam.
So
I just live.
So
You
there
do.
So we were at this awesome place this awesome speakeasy that Pam picked out where we were having some delicious drinks. And then Pam, like I said, pulls out the phone with the notes and says, have you guys seen the movie Blockers? Which I had not seen yet. But you had just seen it and you said, we've got to talk about it on the show.
And then because her name is Dr. Pam Gurley, for a second you were like, really, Pam? Really? Right? Did you have that reaction for a second? Because I did when you were like, Pam said you should watch this. I was like, what?
It's not like a high bar for me to see a movie starring the actors in this movie. This is like...
for you. Yeah. For Pam.
Pam has an excellent sense of humor and taste in movies.
No, I don't know. I just was surprised. Dr. Pam. I don't know. I just figured, like, I just didn't expect it. It came unexpected to me.
Now, with that being said, let's get into the movie, and I'll hand it to Pam first. Why did you pick this movie, and what was your reaction to it?
exactly. Please tell.
So here again, we were just sitting in the house and we're scrolling through iTunes as normal, and we're like, oh, what can we see? What can we see? And I said, you know what? Let's just laugh. We didn't think it would be that good. And when we watched it, oh my gosh, there were parts we was like rewinding back. It was so funny.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. Not thinking this movie is going to be good.
Yes.
And then seeing it.
It's a sneak attack. This movie is a sneak attack. Because I got to tell you,
perfect way.
We got to the 7.5 minute mark, and my husband was like, I am not watching this movie. And like literally got up and walked away, and I had to turn it off. And then the next day, I kept watching it, and I was like, wow, at about the 8.5 minute mark, it really picks up. And then
the first 10 minutes are like crap, and then it gets really good. I was thinking, Becky, you came up with the term, what was it?
Showendipity?
Showendipity, right? No, and then expectation, not expectation.
Oh,
but
showspectation.
It was expectation. Based on like
expectation.
We had very low expectations for this.
Right. And this, I was thinking, I was like, what if it's like neg-expectation, where it's like negative expectations for a movie, and that have something to do with why you like it in the end so much, because you go into it thinking this is going to be so bad, and it's pleasantly surprised.
So the premise of the movie, for those following at home, and this is at the point where I would warn you that we'll probably end up spoiling by accident, is that
this movie can't be spoiled.
There are three parents. There are three parents played by Leslie Mann and Ike Barinholtz and John Cena, a wrestler. We'll get into some wrestling conversation later. Who are, well, two of them are endeavoring to prevent their daughters from losing their virginity on prom night, and another one is trying to prevent the parents from, and the Ike Barinholtz character is trying to prevent the other parents from making his kid miserable and intervening in their lives. And Pam, you're a mother, and you've been a mother of a teenager, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start there. Is there anything in the behavior of the parents in this movie that you, because our kids, my sisters and I, our respective kids, are not old enough for us to have to deal with prom or anything like that. Have you been in the situation like these parents?
No, not really, but I have nieces now who, of course, one just went to prom. Both of them are going into their senior years, and we have conversations. Well, I have conversations with one of them who I speak to more than the other, and me and her recently had a conversation about prom and sex and what's out there. But I feel like that's a realism. I'm glad I didn't have to go through that, really. I became a grandma early, so when she was a teenager. So that already lets you know things happen.
I see what you're saying.
It's some things you can't prevent. I mean, and a good example was in this movie. One of the young girls was adamant about it happening and how she wanted it to happen. And it happened for her, while the others who made this pact didn't.
That is right. Yeah, that is right. It does play with your expectations throughout. Now, how did you feel about the parents' behavior in this movie?
So I looked at it from several different views. I would say on the one hand, I did respect that the father, even though he kind of was not present, very much knew a lot about his daughter because he wanted that relationship with her.
The Ike Barinholtz character.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, wow, that's very special for him to kind of, in the movie, it makes it appear as if he was very absentee.
Right.
But he knew the most about his daughter automatically. And then you had, John Cena, who, I liked his character because normally you see him play more hardened roles.
That's right.
I agree. It was very sweet.
Yeah, and this time he showed his weakness and showed his vulnerability, especially with even wanting to have a friendship with the other mom. And he's like, you never call. It's almost as if he had hurt feelings. But then I also like the dynamic with his wife, how strong she was and opinionated she was. So that was really good to see all of the different dynamics and that the role change for showing how weak men really are when it comes to their girls.
Oh, that's interesting. So
what do you have to look forward to, Shai?
Well, that's a really interesting point because
Hopefully
you're right.
you never have to put beer up your butt which is something
Yes.
that happened to him in the movie.
Yes.
Is that John Cena has to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was one of the, that scene was like, every one of these movies has to have a gross out scene, and what I really enjoyed about that scene was that it's one of these urban legend things you hear about kids doing our age that did not happen when, like, or at our age we hear younger kids doing that did not happen when we were kids.
Yeah.
So when these kids talk about doing it, you kind of expect that, oh, I guess that's what kids do, but the kids are really just playing a joke on him, and they're forcing it.
You know, Becky, I would say that. Well, do you have any more questions for Pam? I don't want to interrupt.
Oh no, you're fine.
Keep going.
Okay.
Pam, thank you for that. But I just want to say thank you to Pam for that laydown, because I think we're all, as we go around to the reactions, because I've chatted with everybody a little bit beforehand, this movie does have those kind of, like, I would say it has deeper things going on in it than you expect while you're laughing so hard.
Okay, yeah. I have a lot to say, so I will just start off with that quick note that you said, Shai, about how you expect certain things, like that butt beer scene, and the kids are just like, that's so gross, this isn't real, and they're just messing with the dad. But Becky mentioned before, she was like, the best part of the movie is like the actual kids, like they're awesome. And I feel like all the kids that were in the movie are really good in that sense.
They're actually fantastic role models,
like surprising,
both for boys and for girls.
Yeah, exactly. They're surprising.
I only had one problem with I had a big problem with one scene, but other than that, I felt like,
which scene?
Well, let's talk about the positives, and then I can get into where I had an issue as far as like representations go. But I thought it was the first portrayal of teenagers that I've seen where I was like, wow, this is actually sex positive, good role models, strong characters.
The kids behave way better than the dad.
And they're well played, but the boys and the girls,
Right.
I felt like actually I felt like the idealistic version of how you would like your teenagers to behave in these realistic situations, which is like drugs, alcohol, sex, parties. And you're like, this is the best possible outcome for how they could behave.
Other than staying at home.
Well,
I think that there's
being in these situations.
So I'd love to tease out the reaction from all four of you who are incredibly awesome, smart, strong women. What you thought of
Who's the fourth?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Sorry, I was including myself in that. I guess I'm not a woman. The three of you, there's four of us. Sometimes I get wrapped up with my sisters.
You are a strong woman, Shai.
And I just wanted to say, what is your reaction to the teenage boy characters? There's three major teenage boy characters. There's the somewhat rich kid, there's the man bun, and then there's the redhead.
Well, okay, my reaction, I said this to you today or whenever we talked, I was like, my reaction was Stifler's dead. It's like,
yes,
that's how I felt.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? As being a kid who saw American Pie in like tons of teen movies, right? Or like Mike Dexter's dead for whatever. You can use so many different ones.
Is the great example, like,
right? And this like sex, hungry, doesn't like take no prisoners. I'm gonna have sex on prom night kind of attitude.
Treats women like garbage and treats girls like garbage.
And like Mike Dexter and his friends and Can't Hardly Wait, and then you can go further and further back, of course, of tons and tons of movies. And I was like, you know what? The movie. That component wasn't in it, and these guys weren't those guys, and it's pretty cool and they're not goodies. Like one makes gourmet drugs gourmet drugs into gourmet food, which is very funny. I thought that was like a bit like, that's so millennial. That like he's not just like a pothead, like Dazed and Confused kind of,
right. That he's making like French macaroons and
right,
like and things, yeah.
Exactly, and they call him the chef, and he's like the Gordon Ramsay of like high school drugs, and so yeah, just that was the impression that I got. And then on one hand, I was like, well, this isn't entirely realistic. Come on, like guys are such assholes, and like guys on prom night would be assholes. And then I was like, oh no, wait. The whole point is that these three girls chose three guys that aren't assholes.
And I think it's all about.
There are guys that aren't assholes.
It's all about like creating role models. Like when we were teens, the role models that we had for how boys behaved was American Pie,
And
which
Jordan
is super
Catalano was like,
right and
so
super like gross and messed up. Even the ones that were in the healthy relationships, like in that movie, like as far as that went. But in this film, you have like they made a joke of it, but you had the rich kid boy, right? Who was texting with his parents, private, intimate things about his life, being like, Dad, I haven't lost my flower yet tonight, but, I'm hoping it's going to happen later. And it's a funny joke, but at the same time, it's showing like, hey, it's okay for a boy to like talk to his parents about sex and what he's thinking and feeling. And I actually thought that was a very impressive little thread that they put in there.
Pam, what did you think?
I admired how all of the kids, both the boys and the girls, had responsible attitudes, even in terms of taking care of themselves. And while some of them, like even with John Cena's daughter said, I learned from you how to take care of me.
Yeah.
But it shaped the way that they thought, how they are viewed, how they act, the way that they were treated. So that said a lot. And even with the relationship with the young boy who was texting everything, basically his family shared every single thing, both the mom and the dad. But the mom and dad also had a healthy relationship.
That's true.
And that brought on a healthy relationship for how he treated his first time and how he wanted his first time in with
even that little detail of they did it on purpose. Like the fact that doesn't know what to do. His girl is so sad. He's kind of like, everything's messed up. And the best friend's like, give me 15 minutes. She sets it all right so that her best friend can have the night that she wanted. And when she walks into the hotel room and everything's all beautiful, she's like, oh my God, you love me so much. You're amazing. And he's like, yeah, this was your best friend that did this. He's like, I love you, but
it's
like
a little detail like that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, no, but she definitely did this. And she cared about you.
And a super important scene was when the John Cena character daughter, when she decided ultimately not to have sex, was Kayla, right? When she decided not to have sex, the reaction of the boy that she was with, his reaction, I thought was very important.
Yeah, he was like, all right.
And very mature. It was very mature.
And then her next reaction is, but we can do other stuff, but we don't need to do that. You know what I mean? And that's like hilarious. Like when.
But I think that's something that goes throughout with these kids, which are the message I think they bring you to is these kids are all raised by good parents who in different ways gave them things to make good judgment, and they're not. The answer isn't that they have good judgment and therefore they're going to be goody goodies and not do anything, crazy or fun or risky in their life, but that within the framework of that, they know how to behave. And I thought that was a very interesting element of the movie.
I agree.
And much different than other things that you'd see where they might have just focused on the fact that you had these great actors playing the main characters and then the kids would just be props without a real story. But the kids had a good story and were well acted all around. I thought they rounded out the movie quite well as a result.
So can we talk about the one scene that I actually want to break down and talk about it a bit more, which is that I felt like I had a bit of a problem with it, which is when
Ike Barinholtz has to squeeze Cole's, whatever his name is, Cole's balls.
Gary Cole.
Gary Cole's balls.
Not that scene.
That made me laugh out loud.
Funny, gross.
While my husband was sleeping next to me, I was trying to watch it last night, and I just started laughing out so loud, but I had the earphones in, so I didn't even notice. And he just turns around and he smacks me. He's like, "Stop it! I'm sleeping." I'm like,
"No, it was with the third friend who knows that she's gay, but still kind of has to go. It's still written in a way where she has to." Where in order to like be sure she's gay, she has to like prove to herself that she is not attracted to boys, and so she still has to she still doesn't have to, it's written where she like gets naked and gets into bed with her prom date and starts to fool around, and I don't think it's unrealistic. I imagine that's realistic for many people, but if you're giving us these ideal portrayals of teenage sex and sexuality, I thought it would have been, I don't know how much I like that idea that she still then had to like touch a boy's penis and like get naked with him in order to be like, no, I'm really gay. Like, why does that have to be part of it?
I think that's a realism. Having talked to both men and women who are gay, and at what time, and I always ask, I mean, they're friends of mine, so I always say, so how did you know? And some of them have, because society at that time wanted to force you to fit into a box or came with a lot of criticism, you try to fight that feeling. And especially when you're younger, you want to fit in. And at that time, she wanted to fit in and be a part of the pack, despite knowing how she felt. I mean, I admire her more that she didn't go through with it, because
right.
I think you're
right. That's the important message, that she didn't go through with it. She tried to fight. She tried to fight the urge because she was worried about how her best friends would view her.
And
I mean, right. I don't think it's unrealistic.
And I think she was experimenting too, because when she talks to the girl she has a crush on, she's like, "How did you know?" And she's like, what did she kiss somebody?" And she was like, "It wasn't for me." And I think that puts the idea in her head, being like, "Well, I guess I'll never know if I don't."
I think one of the interesting things about that thread of the story is that they make the point that the father knows she's a lesbian and doesn't want her to be in the situation that Becky was talking about.
Right.
That's part of him wanting to have her not be pressured.
I see what you're saying.
Not be
right.
pressured.
So then that's her moment of, whereas the two other girls each have their moment. Like, this is her moment to be like, wait a minute, I also don't feel pressured to go through with this because it's not what I want.
And I don't know if that doesn't obviate the criticism that you have, but I think that's how I saw that playing out. It was very much tied into the parental part of the story.
Yeah, and he encouraged her to be honest with her friends, and he said, they'll love you regardless. They're going to always be your friends, and you should be honest with your friends.
So, So Lily, earlier you said Stifler's Dead, referring to the American Pie, of our, which was the teen movie of our childhood.
Yes. You want me to get all culture studies on you? Like,
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I went I really, this movie was shockingly good to me, like we've all said, but it really made me surprised about how much I had to say about it. Because normally, like a silly movie like that, it's like, whatever. Like there was a movie recently, I can't even remember its name, about not that one. The one like a bunch of single girls. It's the one from Glow. She's in it. Alison Brie's in it, and she's trying to look for a man.
Oh, it's
with the one night out, my last night out. It's with Rebel Wilson.
Yeah,
Dakota
I know.
Johnson.
All movies with the word night in the title.
No, those are two different movies.
No, that's the same movie with Alison Brie, isn't it?
I don't know.
And
anyways.
No, How to Be Single.
How to Be Single, right? Like
you're right. And Leslie Mann's in it too. Aren't those two different movies?
Leslie Mann is her sister, who's trying to have a baby.
All one movie. Those aren't two different movies.
I don't know.
Anyways.
I'm pretty sure those are two completely different movies.
She ends up having a baby with the guy from The Office or something.
What?
You're off track. Go back to your point, Lily, please.
Open your IMDb right now.
I'm doing it.
So I'm saying is that all these movies, and going now much further back to our high school, there's a genre. Shai, there's all these kinds of sex and love movies, but if we put the university ones like Animal House and a million others in one category, Van Wilder and a million others, and then you put the post-university like the How to Be Single one, and if you really focus on high school, right, specifically these movies that are there's great ones about that, Prom Night, the last night of the last night of school, whatever, Dazed and Confused, Can't Hardly Wait, American Pie, to name just a few. And Shai and I, and basically we were talking about before, is that for starters, American Pie couldn't be made today. There's no way that movie gets made today about high school students. No, The Hangover can get made for sure, but that's perfectly, capable adults or bridesmaids or stuff like that. And today, I think a high school movie, they're very cautious with good reason, especially with everything, that's going on in the country, and how young girls today, are even more sexualized and all that stuff, and social media and the dangers that are out there that weren't there when we were kids. And I was like, well, that's kind of a bummer in a funny way. As much as I'm, I don't mind that Stifler's Dead, but I was like, those movies aren't the way they used to be. And then I realized, it hit me that this movie is like that. It's just that they divided it in two. that the young girls are having that fun and it's that important big night. And there's a lot of funny scenes in there and they do a great job. But the parents are the ones that do the grotesque, hilarious, sex, embarrassing, dangerous activity in the movie. Raunchy in the movie, and it's sort of like that's permissible because they're adults and it's funny and it's a lot of it's accidental, and it's sort of I think the movie is even not it's not billed well, or it's not even possibly well written in the sense that it's trying to cover that up in that way in order to give young people that sort of raunch and, you know, crossing the line without being inappropriate with high school kids.
So what you're saying is that the adults have taken over the gross out, raunchy American Pie stuff because it's just not acceptable anymore to have the teenagers do it.
Not right now. Like maybe it'll swing back around, and you know what I mean, at some point. But I don't think that it's, you know, I just don't think that a movie like that can be made right now.
Okay. Cool. All right. So all right, wrapping up.
People don't want to not make that movie, so they're like, oh, we'll just have the parents do all that stuff.
All right. So wrapping up, buy, rent, or meh. Lily.
Rent.
Becky.
Buy.
Pam.
I would rent. Good rent. Good rent, but I would rent.
I'm gonna go with rent, but we did buy it, so we own it anyway.
Right. Well, what's funny is that originally I was somewhere between a rent and a meh, and then after really thinking about it and talking about it, I'm like, no, this is a valuable film.
Well, you know what? Maybe it is a buy because, like, if I had a teenage daughter, I'd be like, you should totally watch this movie.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Is that I'm like,
yeah.
I said rent only because, already knowing what's going to take place. No. It's hard to just, it's hard to watch.
I see what you're saying, watchability. Realistically, watchability, you're not watching this more than once. And I do agree with that. Once is enough.
Okay. Now, let us turn to Pam's next topic that she requested. And a show that we have talked about as the show the world needs right now. And that is Queer Eye Season 2. Pam, take it away.
I love it. It's still, I loved it. I've already watched them all, and I've watched some of them more than once. To me personally, I still like season 1 better because I think season 1, every episode to me was really good.
Yeah.
And on this one, they were good, but not as good all the way through season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me wonder, like, why, and Becky, maybe you're better at answering that question. Like, why is it? Did they just get lucky? Did they change the casting? Like,
no, I actually think specifically with this, they shot it all at once and then they just released it in 2 parts.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
I think it's just a coincidence.
I mean, the first episode was good, but it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't mind. I could have shot it.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go ahead.
My theory is, like, I assume they shot it all at once because it didn't make sense that they would go back to that same part of Georgia when now in season 3 they're going to Kansas City. Everybody was like, why don't they go to a different place? It was clear to me, like, I think that they shot it all at once. And then I guess because they didn't know if they'd get a second season, they picked the best ones, put that in season 1, logically. And that's why those are the better 8 episodes.
I think they were always going to have 2 seasons because if they shot it all at once, it was just they've already paid for the production.
You know what I would have liked if I could have said, been the one to choose what your season 2 opener would be for the first episode. I would have chose with the mayor.
The mayor. That was a good one.
That's a great episode.
The mayor,
absolutely love that one.
Season 2 was the proposal one, right?
I love that one too.
The proposal one was my favorite episode of season 2. That was my favorite episode of season 2 is the proposal. I literally just cried the last 10 minutes.
That's a great one.
So it was beautiful.
So Pam suggests the mayor. I've seen parts of it as Allie has watched it at least once, maybe twice. So Pam says the mayor would be the episode she would kick off the season with. Lily and Becky,
or the proposal.
The proposal. No, I think the mayor is a great kickoff, and like the proposal is because it's so good. The proposal, I would use that as like a midway episode to re-energize you.
Okay.
I feel like it was used. I think it was positioned well. The proposal. Yeah.
And okay, so Is this because they were filmed, it seems, at the same time? Is there anything different or improved in the second season, or anything that
I
they
think there's some things
emphasized?
that are actually different.
Okay, go for it.
I think actually what you notice from the beginning of season 1 through season 2 is how the dynamics of the Fab Five evolve. They're so much more comfortable around each other by the end of season 2.
So do you think they filmed in chronological order then?
I don't know. It could just be the way that.
But also, they know them better in terms of the editing, and they're able to edit the relationships in such a way that they.
Whether or not it was done in chronological order, because it's Netflix, so it all airs at once. I just think, and I also think in season 1 they make a point that each person has something. Each of the Fab Five gets like their moment in the episode of something special that they're doing, and then actually in season 2 sometimes.
Some are not as featured
right.
as much.
Sometimes Anthony doesn't have that much to do, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like sometimes each of them just doesn't have that much to do, and they're just not in the episode as much. And so the editing changes the way that they're. And I find also in season 2 they spend a lot more time in the first half of like getting to know the person, like that first day introduction. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
I really like the
takeover part.
The handyman can one.
Really?
I really like that one. Yeah.
That one
a lot.
Really move me. Why did you like that one?
I like it because you just said like not all of them always have a lot to do, and I feel like Bobby always like kind of steals the show. I mean, Jonathan steals the show. That's just because who he is. But in terms of the improvements, to me, Bobby steals the show because like this. I mean, I guess they all do the clothes and the hair and stuff, but the space, the way he changes the spaces is just so fundamental.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's just so crazy. I mean, I like design too, so maybe that's why. It's just so amazing. And with the handyman Ken, it's like for the first time he's met his match. Like he's met someone and he's like, damn, like you have an amazing eye and you're so awesome at this and you have so many beautiful pieces. And in that one, I just really like the way he's like, okay, I don't have that much to do and I'm going to work with you and like incorporate that. And I just really like that. Plus that guy, they changed his life. That guy was going to leave and then he stays and he gets together with his best friend. You know I'm a softie for a love story.
We know.
Oh, I was going to ask, I hadn't seen the episode, but I was like, is there a star-crossed?
Does he make a life-changing choice for the love of his life?
Is there a star-crossed lover in this one?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, Lily's watching it.
And then the one I actually thought was the most interesting is the trans episode because of how each of them interact with him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I feel like they're all of them are you can feel them being like a little bit hypersensitive and being really careful, and you kind of see each of their dynamics much more.
And their admiration as well. I feel like you really see them. They admire all of the people they're with, and that's what we've always said. This show has such heart because they look at every single person, even though they make fun of them, which is hysterical. They make fun of them with them, and they really find something beautiful in every person. And I feel in that episode, they're all really just like on the same level, taken aback by this human being.
So let me ask this: how did you all feel about the first episode when they was doing the change for a woman, the woman that was on there?
It made me want to see more women.
You know what? Not really, because I feel like because it was a woman, they didn't spend nearly as much. They didn't spend any time dealing with the food, which I mean, I get it that she was cooking for a church party, but so it was but the whole food was just about that. So Anthony didn't have a role, and then also Jonathan, you spent no time. I mean, not Jonathan. You spent no time talking about fashion, and I wonder if it was because it was a woman.
That's what makes me more
like
exactly. And like you have to be careful maybe more with a woman. But that's why I want to see more women. I want to see them do better than that episode.
Well, I think they could have chosen differently for that episode if they had to do a woman. I think for me. Dealing with her son, and he should have actually been that person. Right. He should have been the one that they were trying to change. I would have loved to hear more of his story because he seemed more in need than the mother.
I think they realized that as they were filming, because then all of a sudden they switched to this other guy.
It's true, and that happens. But I also feel like, you know, it was much more about giving her church a makeover than it was about her. And I'm not watching the show because I want, like, there's other shows where you can like redo our restaurant or redo our store. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I watch this because I want to see people going through a transformation. And you have a beautiful, beautiful moment between her and her son in the church at the end where she talks about him being gay. And that is very special. And so there is a moment of transformation, but it's not like in the other episodes. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a question for Shai. So I have a tendency to read GQ because I like the articles. So I feel like that's like what people say about Playboy. The articles are really good. Well, I feel like GQ articles are like way better than women's magazine articles. And I like it better.
I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I even picked one up or saw one.
Right. Yes. My point is that I'm watching something that's not reading something that's not necessarily designed for me, but I find it interesting. And then I even browse through like the clothes and like fashion stuff because I find it interesting. I'm watching Queer Eye and I'm fascinated at the clothing choices, the style choices, the hairdos. And I'm not a dude and I can't apply any of this to myself except for Bobby's and Anthony's stuff. But I'm curious as a guy, like, don't you have an interest? Like, why aren't you so interested in seeing like all these style tips?
So so what I love about this show is the human piece and the part about helping people take control of their lives and seeing the beauty in people. But I don't have a lot of personal patience for fashion shows or makeover shows or anything like that. I'm
curious how you could apply it to yourself.
Thanks.
Not that you need it. No, I don't mean that you need it. But
look,
like, I just mean as a curiosity.
I would love those dudes to come and help me.
All you need to do is a French tuck. Just wear your shirt with a French tuck and you'll be fine. And a bomber jacket and you'll be fine.
I don't know what a French tuck or a bomber jacket are.
You tuck just a little bit in the front, not the whole shirt is tucked in.
And have a little bit of fun with your wardrobe, or as Jonathan and Tan always remind them, you know, even if you don't want to look good for yourself, look good for your wife. You know, do it for her. You want to look in the mirror and be like, I look sexy for my wife. I remind Vlad of that all the time. I was like, please try and dress for me, even if you won't dress for yourself.
I really appreciate you fab-fiving me. You know, I dress up pretty nice every day.
I know.
You do.
You have a great sense of style.
Not so much on the weekend, and I wouldn't consider myself a
Ever since you got rid of those train conductor shorts, you know which ones I'm talking about, the train conductor shorts.
My seersucker shorts? I love those shorts.
I've had like a few phases with clothing. But moving on to another question, girls, don't you think that Tan missed the mark a few times in this season?
No, here's what I think happened. I know you're talking about the Sean episode. In the Sean episode, he's like, this kid is a performer and he's definitely gay. I don't need to be subtle. That's what I think happened in the Sean.
But not just in his episode. I feel like I can't now think of the exact ones, but there were a few that I was like, no.
Oh my God, you know what episode I love that we haven't even talked about? The dad, the
Mexican dad,
the bartender dad.
Yeah.
I don't think he's Mexican.
I think he's Mexican.
Colombian?
No, I feel like he says he's Mexican. Am I, Pam? Do you want to weigh in?
You know what? It's weird because he was saying something about Italian and that he best when they were making the pasta.
No, but he's Latino.
So that's why I was a little confused.
Oh,
he's
like he refers to.
I don't remember.
Maybe not. Okay.
But he's Latino. I loved that episode.
Tell why?
Because it was for his kids. Like, it wasn't just for the wife. Like, the wife loved him and found him, like, they have, like, their whole intense, like, sexual chemistry going on. Right? Which is, like,
it was, like, a lot. Yeah.
But
it was adorable.
Was, like, wanting to do it for his kids just moved me so much.
Yeah, I feel like, Shai, you should watch this episode because there's a really interesting point that it probably doesn't, maybe gets discussed on dads. But, like, here's this dad that because of his job, he really felt so self-conscious and like not included and left out of the other dads. He has no friends and doesn't go to any of the activities with the kids. That's literally the opposite of you. But I just think having you being the opposite and being friends with everybody and be such a joiner is a really interesting episode of a dad that feels like all the other dads are going to judge him. And while Karamo, I don't find always is like so obvious what he's doing. Not always. I think he does do a good job, but it's not as clear. This is a great episode because he literally organizes a play date for all the kids and in a space and gets this dad to like hang out with other dads and they're really nice to him. And that changes this guy's life. Huh. I don't know.
That's really cool.
What? It is. Cool. And now that you mention it, I'm going to have to just go back a little bit, having that same conversation about blockers that need to fit in with parents.
Mm-hmm. Right,
That's
and
a
that's
good
like the
point.
whole, and that's the whole like Aaron Holt's character is like not fitting in with the other parents.
Correct.
It's
And
true.
so now you have, another
Shai doesn't
father in
have
there
that.
who wants to fit in, and it mattered. I mean, he actually became very emotional when he was talking about, being not feeling like he was being judged or not liked, and how people saw him.
That's hard for Shai because he like fits in everywhere and gets along with everybody, and everybody wants to be his friend.
That's true.
He doesn't understand that. But it might be interesting, Shai, to see how the other half lived. Watch that episode.
Shai, just remember this. Shai, remember how you were treated when you was doing your trek around the world?
Yeah.
And you were not treated so nicely?
Yeah,
it's that feeling.
Oh, yeah. No, believe me. My sisters, they have a warped sense of my existence. They don't know it. They don't know about the times that I've had to live like
Can we all agree that our least favorite episode was the one with the pathological liar? Right?
Oh, I hated that one.
Yeah.
Like, why does he deserve? He does not deserve.
There's a really weird episode of a guy that just full on lies constantly the entire time, and they're like, "We hate you." So,
It was not a very flattering
that was a
episode
weird
at all.
episode.
That's very weird. Okay, so let's wrap up our discussion of Queer Eye because I know we all have like big lists for what we're watching. Favorite member that isn't Jonathan? Go, Becky.
Anthony.
It's really hard, Shai.
Lily.
I love Anthony because everything he says sounds sensual. Like, no matter what he's talking about, it sounds sensual, and I love this.
What do you think it would take to get him to do the
bisexual? So I'm like, there's a chance. We have a chance.
What do you think it would
And
take?
he's from Montreal and went to Marianopolis.
Hold on. What do you think it would take to get him to do the intro of the podcast?
Literally be impossible. Like, it would
He's
be
the one
impossible.
out of all of them is the hardest probably to get.
And all right, Pam, who's your favorite?
Oh, I don't know, because I like Jonathan's spunky attitude, and
No, we can't choose Jonathan. We're not allowed. He's the
Jonathan is obviously the favorite. So it's like after
do you know that
Jonathan.
Jonathan's coming to tape a podcast here, and it's sold out within 2 minutes.
oh wow,
Yeah, no shit.
I don't know. I like
Buy
tan.
scalp tickets for Allie.
I'd go for tan.
Really?
Yes.
Fascinating.
Oh, yeah. No,
he has
tan
a
is
way
wonderful.
because, he has a way of making people step out of their comfort zone and grow to love it. And that's a lot image is a lot. And for him to be able to pick things that will look good on people.
Oh, that's the fashion guy.
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's really
But then
intense.
also make it to where it doesn't. He tries to pick light pieces that are similar to what people want, but make them wear it with a little more confidence. So it's like, well, you know what, this color doesn't look good for you, so here's your range, and I'm going to show you. And then he shows them how to match it. But a lot of times when the transformation takes place, when they see themselves not only with the cleanup of the hair, but when they see themselves with different clothes. One guy said, I actually look slimmer. And he would have never known that. So then he felt more confident with his body. And
he
a lot
looked
of
like
them.
that guy looked like 30 pounds slimmer. Like tan changed his life. Like
Yes. And so I think that's an art. That's like a skill.
That's a good point.
To be able to do that.
That's a good point. I would say my favorite is, besides Jonathan's Bobby, I just flip over his designs, but also I feel like he is continuously also evolving. He's like always going through something too, and like connecting and like rehashing out his past and like his difficult life story and his coming out story. And I'm just like, I feel like he's also getting a life makeover. I like him a lot.
My favorite. Oh, so the clothing guy's good. I also really like the food guy.
Yeah, Anthony.
Oh, Anthony. Okay, that's. I don't remember
Because he's
anybody.
from
I don't remember
Montreal.
anybody's
And-
names.
Oh, I'm going to save it for my shout out. All right.
Okay. All right. So, let's moving on to what we are watching. And again, I'll give it to our guest because she came with the list. Pam, what are you watching these days?
Okay, so I am watching The Bold Type. I am watching season 2 of Dear White People, which I'm really, I don't know, this season is not so good to me.
I'm back on watching Dear White People because over our drinks, we were also joined by Ariel, who encouraged me to get back to watching the show, and she has agreed to come on as a guest when we talk about Dear White People.
Oh,
And
okay.
That's coming in the future. But I'm now back into the show, and that first season. I'm in the first season, in the middle of the first season.
Well, when somebody tells me that season 2 isn't that good, it gives me less motivation to want to start the show.
Season one is really good. I just started season 2, and I'm about 6 episodes in. The first 2 episodes were good, and there's a law somewhere that just so happens to take place, and I'm still watching it because I do like the content of what it's about, and so I'm gonna still watch it.
It has rave reviews.
Allie loved season 2. So
I've not been able to get.
So what's the bold? That was the previous one that you mentioned.
Oh, the bold type.
The bold
Bow
type.
tie, Shai.
The
what?
bold type. BOLD.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was saying bow tie, Shai.
No. The
Bow
bold
tie.
type. The bold.
The
Okay.
bold
The bold
type.
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 Yes.
It's about 3 millennials who work at this fashion magazine, and just their lives.
That. Yeah, and it's supposed to, like, people think it's kind of like a new Sex in the City, but I read this whole article how they're not at all like Sex in the City. It's
they
like
not
turning
selfish?
it on its head.
Are they not selfish?
No, something like that. They were like, no, it kind of looks like it would be like a new Sex in the City, but it's not. It's completely the opposite. These girls are completely different. That's what I read.
Cool.
Yeah, so
You like it?
I love it. I watch it.
Down. I
watch it every week. Every week. That is one of my shows. I don't know why I'm drawn to it. I just really like it. What else am I watching? I'm not really watching much else. I'm kind of really waiting for the new seasons to pick up, so I can watch my regular shows like This Is Us and all of my Chicago shows.
Did you watch Grey's Anatomy?
Nope, I've never seen that one episode.
Okay, just start it right now.
What? What show?
Grey's Anatomy.
The serious soap opera.
Oh,
that's like a.
That doesn't take place in
very
Chicago,
soapy.
does it? Is that a Chicago show?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
It's very soapy.
No, by Chicago, I mean Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, and Chicago.
My mom would love to watch
Chicago
TV together.
Med.
Chicago Med.
Chicago
My
Animal.
mom watches all the Chicagos.
Chicago.
And I'm hoping they bring back The Good Doctor.
I'd like to see a Chicago Parks and Rec to go in the Chicago universe, but done like Parks and Rec. Just putting it out there. So, like, you'd have, like, Tom Selleck, I assume he's in one of these shows, show up as, like, a guest, but he needs to get, like, a form filled out for one of his police reports.
Oh, my gosh.
I see what you mean. Like a crossover, but it's Parks and Rec of Chicago Police Department.
Exactly. And all of those characters would come through.
That's genius. You should be careful what you say out loud. Someone might steal that idea.
Well, or someone
amazing.
might copyright. Oh, Lily, I didn't tell you this, that some person got one of our episodes taken down for copyright, like a copyright strike on YouTube, which
How is that possible?
Yeah,
we
exactly.
don't use any.
Exactly. I'm figuring out how to dispute it. But anyways.
That's hilarious. Oh my God, that means we're famous. All press is good press. Which episode was it?
Episode 39. So people, you can still get it on on Podbean.
Oh my God, we're being blacklisted.
iTunes.
This is huge, guys. Huge.
All right. Lily, Pam, do you have anything else that you're watching?
No, those are the top 2 that I'm really watching right now.
Cool. Lily, what are you watching?
I had a lot to say and now I forget, but I'm watching. I'm still watching the Spanish bank heist show, Money Heist, which is good. It's really good. It's too bad you guys can't see it. It's
No, we
on
have it.
Netflix
We have it on Netflix. I just,
You do?
It's in my queue. Yeah, I just haven't started it
You
yet.
have it. Oh, it's very Spanish, meaning that at some point in a bank heist,
they're always
there's going to
late
be
for the
butts
bank
and
heist?
boobs. No,
Oh.
there's just like always some gratuitous sex scene, out of nowhere because they have a quota to fill to like make sure you're aware it's being filmed in Spain.
Oh, I
or,
just
like
assumed-
a Mediterranean country. It's
I just
so
assumed,
funny.
I just assumed they're about to escape from the bank, and they're like, "Hold on, we have to get a coffee."
This is 100% happens in this movie a bunch of times. There's a lot of like having a coffee, which you would think. I said to Costa, I was like, why are there so many coffees in a bank heist movie? It's very true. I wanted to go back quickly. I forgot. Do you think John Cena has like a thing in his contract where he has to show his butt? Because that guy always shows his butt in movies. I just think it's like unnecessary.
I never paid attention to that.
In Trainwreck, he's got a lot of butt in that movie too.
Oh, he's very funny. I think John Cena is doing a great job as a wrestler turned actor. I think he's
doing a good transition.
Yeah.
He's done some like movies with cred. He's done a lot of comedy. He's done some voice work. He did the Ferdinand the Bull movie. He's the voice in that, and he was very good.
If Rock can do it, I can do it. And then we started Broadchurch, which makes me want to have to take a Xanax. So I don't understand, of all people, how our dad watch that show.
So
it's like the most anxious person. I don't get it.
Dad loves British crime shows.
It's because they're British. For some reason, like takes the edge off for him.
We started Broadchurch
really
season 2, and I actually like season 2 more than season 1. I think
really, I want to keep watching it, but it's very heavy.
Season 2 is not what I expected it to be about, and it's very cool.
Oh, cool. Okay, and then I'm going to keep going. It's good. It's just intense. And I'm curious if you guys just watched like the first episode of Money Heist for me.
I will do that. I'm going to do that.
Maybe we'll watch that later.
I'll check it out.
Although we're in on this Broadchurch season 2 right now in our house.
Okay. Cool.
Becky, what are you watching?
Well, I can tell you what I'm not watching because I have tried to watch Westworld season 2. That show is so boring. If you're having a hard time sleeping, put it on. I guarantee it'll knock you out. I couldn't finish the episode. I was like, I would rather lay in bed and stare at the ceiling than watch this. And that's actually what I did.
Can I tell you something? I read an article recently that said we can't understand how HBO's Westworld is the, in quotes, #1 show on TV when it has the least amount of viewers. It was like one of those articles of like calling bullshit on these like statistics and the Rotten Tomatoes shit and all that. And they're like, nobody watches the show because it's so bad. Why is it the #1 show on TV?
Anyway, so
made me think of you.
Terrible.
I liked season 1 a lot, but they may have painted themselves into a corner.
It's terrible. So then the next night I was like, all right, well, let's try something else. So we watched the first episode of another HBO show, Succession. And again, I got up and left before the end of the episode because I looked at Vlad and I was like, I don't enjoy watching stories about shitty people being shitty to each other. And
don't watch Friends from College.
It doesn't,
Netflix.
right, exactly. Friends from College, I only watched one episode. I never watched it again. So it's actually, I will say, it's really well made. The acting is fantastic. It's got a cool style to it. And it seems like it's going to be a great story about like family rivalries and, corporate world. But it's just like the super, super, super rich people in New York who are terrible being terrible to each other. Yeah. So for me, didn't work, but I guess I could see how other people might like it.
If you're looking for that, I recommend Billions, because Billions is a cool show.
It's way smarter.
If you're gonna do that, I would do that one.
Okay, so it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
Just quick interruption. Anybody see or heard of, maybe Becky, You Sharp Objects with Amy Adams on HBO? No?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, but I really do want to watch it. Okay. So that's on my list. I'll report back. All right. Yeah. So that's me.
Okay.
Shai?
So, all right. Detroiter season 2 is out. Beck, I hope you're catching up. It's like
catching up.
It's like Found Money.
Did you buy it on Prime?
I bought it on Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna watch it.
And it's just like I will say, if there's one theme of episode that I don't like that they've done now twice, is I don't love when they do an episode about Sam's family. But aside from that, everything within the ad agency is amazing. But with that, I'm going to tie Detroiter season 2 with a shout out to George Roberts, who was on the ROI Summit with me, because he's from Detroit. And he is sending me local commercials from Detroit that are like the commercials
that they're making
in this show. And I love local commercials. The ones in our area in Washington are amazing. But so, George, you're a good man, and I love talking about Detroiters with you. And thank you for continuing to keep me posted on the real Detroit things that are in that show. Apparently, it's very real. The other thing that I guess I'm watching, we could talk a little bit about some new things that are coming out. The spin-off to Sons of Anarchy trailer dropped.
Did some trailers drop, Shai?
Some trailers dropped. I know Lily has issue with trailers dropping being an event. It is a little bit weird.
I just don't understand. I had a whole thing with Shai on the phone the other day when the like in 3 minutes I got like notifications that the second Queen trailer dropped. That the three other movie trailers. The Aquaman trailer dropped, and then another person's movie on Instagram, they were saying theirs was dropping tomorrow. So it's not enough that it has to drop today. Now we have to pay attention for the fact that the trailer is being released tomorrow. Like, we don't have enough on our plates.
You said that
there
Aquaman?
Were just trailers in the theaters. Yes, Aquaman.
I'll just go just to see him. I don't care what the movie is about.
I'm not saying I minded that the trailer dropped. I love trailers.
Pam, I will get us tickets. We will go together. Maybe we'll watch it twice in a row.
I love a trailer like The Next Guy. In fact, I have the app on my phone, and when I can't sleep at night, I put in my headphones and I just watch some trailers. It's like watching little tiny movies before bed. I know.
I'm avid. I actually get to the movies so that I can make sure and see the trailers. If I don't, I won't even go to the movies unless I can see the trailers. Those are so important for me.
But Shai and I were talking that I read an article how everybody was up in arms that the first Queen trailer came out, and then everybody got really upset, and it was heavily criticized because it didn't show enough that he embraced being gay, and it didn't show that he had AIDS. And Shai and I were like, but it's not the movie. For God's, it's a trailer, and why should it show everything? So they released a second trailer where there's like, it's very explicit that he talks about being gay and you know, alludes to the fact that he's sick. And the trailer's like 4 minutes long.
Wow.
And I just feel like this whole thing of like the trailer dropping, it's like a bit much.
Well, I mean, I enjoy trailers, but for movies I really, really want to see, I don't tend to watch the trailers.
They have to show you everything in case everybody gets all in a huff.
I mean, I do think it's odd to judge movies on whether or not there'll be certain things in or not in them based on what should be something that's supposed to get you excited to see a movie, a commercial for said movie. So that is a bummer. But I have to say, both of the trailers for Bohemian Rhapsody look amazing. I cannot wait to see that movie. That's going to be a great movie.
I agree. And Shai, I did see the trailer I saw all of the trailers that you had on there, and I have never seen Sons of Anarchy. But oh my gosh, it made me want to go see it when they had the Mayans one.
Good.
Oh well, the Mayans
really good.
The Mayans one should be really good. Sons is a very intense show, but I highly recommend it. It's very violent, but it is a great cable show. If you have it on one of the streaming networks, it's worth starting that one from the beginning. That is a major crime soap opera event. It's hardly, super realistic or anything like that, but it's cool. And then so the other thing I'm excited about was they dropped the trailer for Shazam, starring Zachary Levi of Chuck.
I need to see the trailer. I haven't seen the trailer yet.
And people have been looking to try to hate on this movie because Shazam's kind of a goofy character because he's a kid that's in a superhero's body, and the costume is a very sort of old-timey looking superhero costume, but this is a situation where the trailer has not told me the plot of the movie, but it's given me a feel for the movie, which essentially strikes me as a mix between the movie Big and the TV show Chuck, which is
it's perfect.
It's perfect for Zachary Levi, and he looks hilarious in it as this person sort of discovering his superpowers. And I'm rarely rooting for the DC superhero movies, but I am now definitely rooting for this one, and I'm going to go see it.
All right.
And especially since we've been talking a lot about Chuck lately, which I rewatched the finale of season 3, and that is one of my favorite episodes of that show. Very excited to hear that they have cast Jennifer Hudson in Cats the Musical. So that means that movie is...
you're excited there's a Cats the Musical movie.
You're
there with that.
Believe me, I have in my mind created a whole Cats shared universe. So...
Oh my gosh.
You should really pitch the cartoon version.
And so, there's a whole, it's borderline Thundercats, but urban and in England. That is my version of Cats. And then also, there's great news that Clone Wars is going to be back on the new Disney streaming service. And I saw a hilarious meme on one of the funny Star Wars accounts that I follow. And I don't remember which one it was right now, which is a bummer. But the meme was essentially a picture of Clone Wars coming back on. And then the meme at the bottom says, Lucasfilm's plan B, make Star Wars fans happy. Because Clone Wars was a great show that really added to the story of Star Wars and added to the complexity without ruining it. And that was an obvious dig at The Last Jedi. And I think people are very excited about Clone Wars coming back. So I'm excited about that. And then last but not least, I continue to be down the rabbit hole of this website, whatculture.com's summaries of various topics about professional wrestling. And I have been sending my sisters videos via email all week. And at one point, Becky writes to me and says, if we just ignore these, will you stop sending them? And I said, no, exactly the opposite. I'm going to keep sending these to you until you watch, top 10 WrestleManias, or top 10 moments when wrestling got really real, or top 10 moments when you love to hate John Cena, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I've absorbed a lot of wrestling history. So that's what I'm watching. I dare anyone to watch any of those little clips and exchange with me, tweet with me, whatever. There's no person I know that wants to have a conversation with us about this.
No, literally no one on this podcast either. We're all just silent as you talk about it. No one's jumping in.
I've Skype called Pam and Becky. We're having a completely separate conversation.
Okay, let's do our shout outs. Pam, do you have any shout outs?
I'm just going to shout out my partner for Herspiration Happy Hour, which is Dr. Zoe Zorka. Of course, I'll shout out Jay, who's always so supportive of me. And I'm going to really give a shout out also to Dr. Pani Nazari, who I just had on my podcast, who was amazing. And I'm looking to have her back again. So, you can always tune in to Herspiration Happy Hour.
Could you plug that episode? Because I have read the description. I have not listened yet, but I am really interested in that episode.
So, yes, I had Dr. Pani Nazari on my podcast, who is a pelvic floor therapist. And while I thought it was just going to be, yes, I thought it was just going to be about women, but she talked to me about men who need pelvic floor therapy, and I thought men have a pelvic floor, and I didn't even know this either.
Everybody who peepees has a pelvic floor.
Yes, I didn't know that, and men can Kegel. Didn't know that either. So so definitely.
I think we found the title of this episode. Men
you can
Kegel.
tune in.
Men can Kegel.
To find that out, and so I'm going to actually have her back to have more in-depth discussion about men Kegling and just male health as well as female health, because it was so great, just to have her on, and she's very excited to be back. So I'm gonna definitely have her back.
So everyone should check
tune
it out.
in. It's episode 10,
and that's Herspiration.mag.
Herspiration Happy Hour.
And you can get it on iTunes and
you can
Podbean
iTunes,
and all the places.
Podbean, Buzzsprout. I'm moving to Stitcher also, so it'll be available, and it is also on Spotify.
Awesome. Well, we love it, and I'm so glad that you plugged that episode, because that looks like a really interesting one. And Becky, who do you have shout-outs to?
I want to shout out to my friend Isabel for making me Antony's Green Goddess dressing. Ooh.
All right.
From the episode where he makes the Green Goddess dressing, which is the proposal episode. She made some and she brought it over the other day.
Cauliflower.
Yeah, it was so good. So shout out to her.
I am so jealous.
Okay, and over to Lily.
Lily. It seems like you forgot my name for a second.
A little bit.
There's a long pause there. I want to shout out to Gato, one of my favorite of our Twitter followers, because he got so excited about this week's episode. He tweeted at you asking you where it was.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, dude, it's Thursday.
I love Gato. You know why? Because Gato will tweet at
so
any
happy.
moment that he's watching a movie, and half the time I'm watching that same movie.
He is in
really
tune
cool.
with us. He is in tune.
He's our Twitter spirit animal.
So
I really love it. I also want to shout out. I'm not finished.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
also want to shout out to our cousin Shelly, who continuously writes us, or at least she definitely wrote me this week. I think
Sounds like cousin Shelly and cousin Vanessa are rivaling each other for shout outs, because this is like 3 or 4 weeks in a row cousin Shelly's getting a shout out. It's a competition.
She wrote me that she was laughing so hard by listening to the last episode on her way to work that like her tears like got in her eyes as she was driving, and that made me super happy.
That's awesome.
Those are my shout-outs.
So my shout-outs, other than to, of course, cousin Vanessa, are to our cousin Mindy, whose birthday is today while we are taping this episode. So happy birthday, Mindy. That is Shelly's older sister. And we hope you're having a wonderful, super day. So happy birthday to Mindy. And then I want to give shout-outs to a couple other creators in the digital world. One of them is a woman who goes by the handle MJ Maelstrom, and her name is MJ Medina. Yeah, I hope I pronounced that right. And she is a musician and producer, and I think I'm not 100% sure of all of her talents. She seems to have a lot of them. But the other day, she posted on Instagram and invited people to pick any song that they liked and send them to her, and then she'd send you a song back on Spotify. And so I spent the first one that came to my mind, which was REM's Find the River, which is, I mean, if you were to ask me for a song, that's probably going to come up. Like REM's Find the River or Night Swimming, one of those two songs will usually come up. And then she sent me back music from a band called Flight, a song called Faithless. And there was another song called, it had the word Victoria in it, that was on the same album. And I loved it instantly. It was a great choice. Lily, it's in your Spotify now because I saved it.
I'm sure it is.
And I think you'll like it. It was very cool. So I want to thank her. I sent her back.
Cool.
I sent her back a Tragically Hip song called World Container, and now I'm waiting. I hope she sends back another one because she knocked out of the park on the first one. So, but I know she's doing this for a lot of people. I think probably responded to this. And then I want to give a shout out and a huge recommendation for another podcast that I stumbled on through the various liking of each other's posts and things like that. But this podcast called the Ha Podcast, also known as Here's a Hypothetical, and it's these three very funny people. They are essentially they're an improv podcast is the best way to describe it, and they put each other in, I guess, hypothetical scenarios. Their names are Jay, Brittany, and Doug, and it's a little bit like Would You Rather, but it's a little bit like the episode, to tie back to wrestling, that I picked first to listen to. They throw out the name of a real wrestler and then ask one of the other people to come up with the finishing move. So when someone asked about The Rock, I want to say Brittany said, "Oh, well, he cooks things," because you know how Rock is always saying, "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" I thought that was really funny. Anyways, they've got a really good sense of humor, and they invited people to send them topics. So I sent them a topic in honor of my sisters. So if they ever use it, it's dedicated to you guys, Lily and Becky. I threw out a bunch of names of characters from 90s movies, like Mr. Pink from Reservoir Dogs, and Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs, and asked them to describe their hypothetical lesser known siblings. So the challenge is out there. I hope they listen. I hope people listen to them. They're quite funny, and recommendation and a shout out to them. And those are my shout outs. I'll come back around to Pam. We talked about where people can find your podcast, but where can people follow you and, like Lily, be both happy that they are friends with someone so cool, but also slightly intimidated by your amazing life?
So I can be found on Instagram at _authenticallyme_, and at Twitter at I am Dr. P. Gurley.
Awesome. All right, cool. And Becky, where can we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at PaperBKPrincess. And there's, the back catalog of recipes on everydayoat.com.
Cool. And Lily?
I am at Chichi K. Gomez on Twitter.
Super. You look like you forgot who you were there for a second.
No, I was holding back I was holding back not to say on twitter.com.
Oh, okay. You did it. Good job. So you can follow me at Pancake4Table on Twitter and Instagram, on the web, pancake4table.com, or FridayNightMoviePod.com to follow this podcast. If you like the buttery tart tones of my voice, is that what we went with today? Buttery and tarty tones of my voice. You can follow Behind the Music, which is the podcast that I do with Ash from the Gold Nerds, and we are now fully, up and running. Every 2 weeks there'll be an episode. And I want to thank everybody who voted this week on our poll where we pitted Shania Twain's midriff against Lionel Richie's mustache. We had a deadlock. Every week we do a battle of the rock star body parts, and when we have a deadlock, we put it out to the people following on Twitter to vote, and just say like Shania destroyed Lionel Richie.
Destroyed Lionel. 82% to 18%.
Yeah, there was like no. I could not believe it. I really thought the sexiness of.
I thought
Lionel's
that
mustache.
Lionel would have definitely gotten more.
Yeah, but no, he was destroyed. There's a lot of people who feel really strongly about Shania Twain.
I know.
So, anyways, so people can follow that
All right.
as well. And with that, the music kicks in. We dance in our chairs. And thank you for being here. Bye, guys.
Thank you all for having me on. Bye.
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 Love you guys. Love you, Pam.
Love you too. You all have a great day, great week.
Bye.
Okay, bye, but Pam, don't hang up.
I mean, she can hang up. She's Lily. Unlike you, everyone else has been on the phone for 2 hours.